In this episode we are going to create a very simple 2D game scene. So I'm just going to show you the end result. And we have this Jack sprite or texture, and as you can see it plays this idle animation. And if I start to move Jack, it will switch to walking animation, and if I stop, it switches back to the idle animation. And also we are going to implement the texture flipping, so if I'm now going to move Jack to the left, it flips the texture to face left. Okay, so what we are going to use is what we learned already in the previous two videos. So the egg texture cards animations and also the orthographic projections. So the first step will be to actually create the Jack.egg file, which will contain all the images for the animation. So here I prepared a folder on my desktop, and in this folder I added the idle animations, so idle 1 through 10, so idle 1, idle 2, idle 3 up to idle 10. So these are the idle animations. And also added here the walk 1, walk 2 up to walk 10. So the idle has 10 frames and the walk also has 10 frames. And now I already prepared here the command. So, and I'm going to run this command inside a CMD window. So we are going to use the egg texture cards executable, which comes pre-installed with Panda3D. The output will be the Jack.egg file, the FPS, so how fast cycles through these animations or through these images. We are setting it to 10. And also we are setting with a -G flag the size of the geometry. So this is the left side, this is the right side, and this is the bottom, and this is the top. So each of these images, if I go to the details, has a size of 579 by 763. So that's why we are giving 579 for the width and 763 for the height of the image. And this is, as I said, the left, right, bottom, top. So left and the bottom will be 0. And then I'm just giving here the name of the images. So the walk1.png, walk2, walk3, walk4 up to walk10.png. And here, after the walk 10, I'm just giving it the idle 1.png, idle 2, idle 3, idle 4 up to idle 10. So, and this -G was actually mentioned here when I created the texture cards animation video, thanks to this guy Ian H, who wrote that I can also use the -G character to specify the size of the geometry. And of course, thank you, Ian. And okay, so here I'm just going to open a CMD window in this folder, and I'm going to copy this command. So select it and copy all. So Ctrl C and paste it here, Ctrl V. Okay, so I'm going to run this command, and it says that it's writing a Jack.egg, so we specified here that it should be called Jack.egg. So let's open this Jack.egg file using Sublime. And here in this comment section you will see that the full command for creating this egg file. And here in the texture section it contains all the textures used, so walk 9, walk 8 and so on. Here is the idle 10, idle 1. And what is the most interesting is now it created, instead of vertices between 1 and so now the vertices are much bigger. So before, when I created this video, so the video number 24, I didn't give this flag, where is it, this -G flag. But now, because I specified that how big the size of the rectangle, now it is here. So we have, this is the upper left corner of the rectangle, this is the lower left corner of the rectangle, this is the lower right corner of the rectangle, and this is the upper right corner of the rectangle. So as you can see, now it ranges from 0 to 763 on Y, and from 0 to from 0 to 579 on the x-axis. So I mean, yeah, on the x-axis. So now we are going to use this file to actually load the animation, and I'm just going to close this window and select all of these files, also the egg file, and just copy this. And here I already prepared a folder called Jack, and I'm going to paste in this folder. Okay, all the idle animations, the jack.egg, the walk animations, and add. Yeah. Okay. So now we are going to go to the coding part. So just to save a little bit of time, I already prepared here some starting code. So here in the MyGame class, which inherits from the show base, I already loaded the Jack model from the assets. So if you go to the assets, here is a Jack folder, and inside the Jack folder there is jack.x. So assets, Jack, and Jack. And I'm also going to rescale it to 0.3 on each axis, because this is a fairly large image. And here I'm reprinting Jack to the render so it is visible. Here I'm creating an orthographic lens for orthographic camera, setting the film size to 1280 by 720, so this is the size of the viewing box. And also for the near clipping plane. And here I'm setting the near and the far clipping plane to near is the -5 and the far is, or -50, and the far is set to 50. And here I'm also setting for the camera that node that set lens these lenses. And now if I run this application, it automatically starts to cycle through the animation. So it goes to idle, then to walk, idle, walk. So we are going to control when to play the idle and when to play the walk. And one more thing, if I don't scale it down, so I'm just going to comment out this set scale. Now as you can see, Jack is very, very large. So as I said, each of these image has a size of 579 by 763. And if you take a look at the film size, it is only 1280 by 720, which is the actual size of the window. So that's why I'm just going to scale it down by, so if you give it only to the set scale, if you give it only one value, so like in this case, so 0.3, it will scale down on each axis, x, y, z, so uniformly by 0.3. And now I'm just going to add the movement code, so to left and right, and these parts will be speed up. So I just wrote out the movement logic. The only thing I just didn't add or I forgot to add is add to the task manager. So self.task manager.add the add with double D the move jack method. So self.move jack without the parentheses, and also give it a name like move dash jack. Okay, so I'm just going through the code and quickly explain. So here I created a dictionary called keymap, and it has a key called left, which starts with false or its value is false. So then a key which is right and its value is also false. And here globally I created this update keymap function, and it will update this keymap, this dictionary. So it takes the control name and the control state, and on the keymap, so on this one, it sets the control name equal to control state. So the control name is the left or the right, and the control state is the false or the true. And yeah, I just realized that I forgot to actually add the to accept the keyboard input. So I'm just going to type out this quickly. Okay, so here I added 4 lines to accept actually the arrow left button. When the arrow left button is pressed, we are going to call the update keymap global function, so this one. And the control state and the control name and the control state, we are passing it as this list. So the control name is the left and the control state is true. So update keymap will set the keymap to true here in this line. And when we are releasing the left arrow, so this is the arrow underscore left dash up, we are calling the update keymap, and it will set the left to false. And when we are moving to right, so we are accepting the arrow underscore right, and we are giving it the update keymap as a callback function, and we are setting on the keymap the right to true. And when we release the right button, so arrow underscore right dash up, we are setting the right back to false. And here in the move jack method, we just asking if the update key, or if the keymap is left or the keymap left is true, we are decrementing or subtracting the value from this self.x, which starts at 0. We are subtracting from its value the self.speed times the dt. And if keymap right is true, then we are adding to x the self.speed times dt. And here we are also setting the jack's position to self.x, 0 on x, or 0 on y and 0 on z, and just returning the task.count, so it will loop again and again, so 60 times in a second. So okay, now we prepared the most of the code, and let's test it. And now if I press the right key, it moves right, and if I press the left key, it moves left. So the only thing left is actually make the texture flipping, so when it moves to the left, it will flip to, or it will face to left, and also control the animation, so when plays the idle and when plays the walking animation. Okay, so now just let's set it so that only plays the idle animation, so it doesn't cycles through the idle, then the walk, then back to idle and the walk. And you can do this by with this line. So self.jack.find inside the egg file the sequence node, that loop method, set the loop to true and loop through the frames from 10 to 19 and 10 and 19. So these are the idle frames. So if I'm going back here and open up Jack, where is it? Yeah. So these are the idle frames. Idle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And because we add that here with the command, with this command, the idle through 10, so the first 9 frames are from 0 to 9 the walking animation, and from 10 to 19 are the idle animations. So it's hard to explain, but now it only plays the idle animation, so it doesn't play out the walking animation. And if I want to play, let's say, only the walking animation, I'm going to comment this out. The walking animation starts at 0 and it goes to frame number 9. And now only plays the walking animation. So, and we are going to control this inside. I'm just going to comment out this and comment back this, so it by default it will play the idle. And to actually switch between the idle and the walk, we are going to use this update keymap function. And to this function I'm just going to add 2 more parameters. One will be the entity, and the second will be the walking. And I'm just going to paste here a few lines of code and then explain it. So if the walking is true, so this will be a boolean. So if the walking is true, we are going to find on the entity. So entity will be passed as the jack file, or the jack node path. And so entity that find the sequence node that loop the, so if it is walking, then loop the frames from 0 to 9. So these frames, walk 1, walk 2, walk 3 up to walk 10, but it goes from 0 to 9. And else, if it is not walking, then we are also going to call on the entity, which is the jack notepad, that find the sequence node that loop, and now loop it from frame number 10 to frame number 19. And okay, so now we need to add this entity and this walking here when we accepting the key presses. So the entity will be the self.jack and the arrow left, and this will be set to walking. Yeah, so this will be set to true. And here I'm just going to copy this. So when we are releasing the left arrow, we are going to set also the entity will be the jack, but the walking will be false. And the same goes for arrow right. So here I'm passing the entity as jack, the walking will be true, and when we release the arrow right, so arrow right dash up, on the entity we are setting, so we are setting on the entity, so entity is this parameter, we are setting, yes, sorry, I'm just totally a little bit confused from my own code to have, actually not confused, but how to explain this for me who is not a native English speaker. So, okay, so when we press the left arrow, these 4 values will be set for as these function inputs. So when it is true, the walking, it will play the walking animation. When we release the button, it will be false, so it will play the idle animation. And the same applies when we press the right arrow and we release the right arrow. So now let me see it. So when I press the, let's say, the right arrow, it now starts to walk. And when I press the left arrow, it starts to go back as Michael Jackson did. So the only thing left is actually flip the texture. So let's add the last step. So here, also in the update keymap function, I'm just going to add 2 more if conditions. Oops, like this. So if the control name is left, then we are going to, on the entity, set the texture scale. I'm also going to import this texture stage class. So it is in the Panda core and here. So from Panda3D, that core, import orthographic lens and also the texture stage class. Okay, so as a set scale, it needs as a first argument the texture stage, and we can get it by a texture stage that get default. It will return the default texture stage. So when we are facing left, so these are the UV coordinates. On the U, it will flip. So it will set to -1, which will flip the texture to the left, so to face to left. And the V will stay at 1. So elif, the control name is right, so this parameter. Then on the entity, which is jack, we are going to set the scale. Also here as a first argument, we have to use the default texture stage. But now the U coordinate will be 1 and the V coordinate will be also 1. So here it is -1 and 1, here it is 1 and 1. And now if I'm going to run it, now it should face left when I'm going to move it left. Okay.